Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast for Thursday, August the 29th. I'm Zach Ewing with Reed Darcey and Koki Riley, a couple of our LSU beat writers here at The Advocate. And it is game week, baby. It's time to talk LSU, USC. Not that we haven't been talking about it for like a month already, guys, or longer. But the time is finally here. We're 3 days away from game day out at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And we are going to preview this one every which way you can think of today. Our show is brought to you by Waste Pro. Tiger fans, if you're planning a tailgate or event, keep your guests comfortable with portable toilets from Waste Pro. Call 225-744-6400 and mention the LSU Sports Insider for a special offer. Look, The Advocate, we got LSU USC today. We're going to have it all weekend through Sunday, and of course, game coverage in Monday morning's paper. Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabelais will be out there for us. We've got Wilson talking to a USC beat writer in this show, Luca Evans of the Orange County Register. We're going to have our breakdown of LSU offense versus USC defense. We'll flip it around, do it the other way around. We'll have predictions at the end of the show. So everything you want to know about USC, LSU, we've got on the LSU Sports Insider, and we're going to get to it right after this break.
Football fans, with the Caesars Sportsbook app, you can be in the game all the time. Seeking instant action? Quick Picks offers you the most popular games and markets, already built for you and ready to bet. Experience the thrill when you stack your bets to create a super parlay. Build bets for your favorite teams and players across multiple games. This season, don't just watch the game. Download Caesars Sportsbook and experience the game like never before.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You gave me love, gave me love.
All right, guys, so 6:30 p.m. Louisiana time, 4:30 p.m. out in Vegas on Sunday. LSU finally gets it going. A lot of talk about this one, Reed, but we finally get to see what happens in what's a really huge game for both programs.
Yeah, we're finally, we are sending Wilson and Rab to Las Vegas, and we're going to hang back. We're going to watch from home. It's very exciting. Been looking forward to this one for a long time, like you mentioned. This is really, really important for both programs. I think you can argue probably, Koki, that, really each fan base says that their team needs to win. And I'm not saying that lightly. LSU probably needs to win, or else their path to the playoff is really, really difficult without it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just given the fact that, as we all know, the SEC schedule has gotten harder for everybody this year with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. And, when you have Ole Miss and Alabama and Oklahoma and Texas A&M on your schedule, then you're going to need all the breathing room that you can get. And this is a very big game, and also because of just the pure fact that this team hasn't won an opener since 2019, and at some point you have to win your season opener if you want to, play for national championship.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because it's a 12-team playoff now, so it's not a must-win like you would have in the the BCS era or even the 4-team era where you can't lose this game and expect to win a national championship. But you're right. Your margin for error is gone if you lose for either team. And I think for both teams, their fan bases want to see a little momentum. These are big-time programs. These are big-time histories in college football for both of them, and they want to see their teams get off on the right foot. And by the way, if you can, just look at LSU. You play Nichols next week, then you've got some home games coming up. I mean, you could really build a resume before you get into some of your other really tough games later on in the season. So, by the way, Wilson and Rab, they ain't going out there to go to Caesar's Palace, baby. They're going out there.
They're going there for a fist fight with their deadlines.
Yeah, they're going to go out there to beat some deadlines. I'm sorry. Yeah. Shout out Will Campbell.
Yeah, but that was a great quote.
Will Campbell says LSU's going out there for a fist fight. I do like this too. I mean, I know it's the first game of the season, so you'd expect it. But as we look at today's injury report, which is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, both teams are healthy. USC coach Lincoln Riley said they have a couple guys with nicks and bruises, but they expect everybody to be a full go. Same goes for LSU, except for the possibility of Chris Hilton. He's questionable. I just kind of reading between the lines, Koki, it feels like he's going to play. But if he doesn't, that's the only thing that LSU will be missing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance that he doesn't play, but I think he definitely wants to play in this game, given how, especially how strong of a fall camp that he ended up having, and how his chemistry with Nussmeier is really starting to peak right now, and just given how comfortable those two guys were together, and the fact that he's, we already know that he's done / doing activities throughout this week, knows that he's at least close, even if there's a chance he doesn't play this week.
And that guy has had a lot of injuries through his career. He wants to be out there. So I think there's a chance he'll play. But today's injury report and today's show is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. So we want to kind of kick off this really in-depth discussion of this game, guys, with a report from the other side. And we're going to call that our opposing scouting report. And Wilson, before he went out to get in a fist fight in Las Vegas, interviewed Orange County Register beat writer Luca Evans, who covers the USC Trojans for the OC Register. And he covers this team on a day-to-day basis, so kind of asked him some players to watch, some matchups to watch, that sort of thing. And today's scouting report is brought to you by Classic Industrial Services, because at Classic Industrial Services, every minute matters, and every minute matters. A lot packed into this interview between Wilson and Luca, so let's get right to that.
Joined today by Luca Evans of the Southern California News Group, USC beat writer over there. Luca, Lincoln Riley here in year 3, a USC team that seems like it has a lot of similarities with LSU. What do you make of this team as it comes off a year that was really, probably pretty underwhelming when you had a quarterback like Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really crucial year for Lincoln Riley in terms of, who he is as a program builder, right? He's continued to kind of reference this rebuild, in that he's undertaken since arriving at USC. And this is the year when, a lot of the recruits from that first class are, should be coming into their own. And when kind of that transfer portal heavy utilization that, the USC started to use in 2022 and even 23 tapered off a little bit. And now they really kind of see what they have. And that started last year in the Holiday Bowl when you saw guys like, Miller Moss finally kind of step up and get their shot. And so a lot of those same guys, they've got a few kind of key transfers, a lot of guys in the secondary, Easton Mascarenas Arnold and at linebacker. Defensively, I think they'll be much improved. The question is how much improved to, reasonably sustain Lincoln Riley's offense. And as you said, there's a ton of similarities to this LSU team. I think the Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier matchup is fascinating from a standpoint of, I don't think you're going to see too many more quarterback generations who are going to stick it out like they did just in this era. So, but all in all, I think it's a really crucial year, like I said, for Lincoln Riley and USC. I think the outlook is more positive in a sense than it was last year, but there is not as much apparent talent. And so this is going to rely heavily on coaching and defensive improvement for them to get where they want to go.
What is this offense going to look like with Miller Moss at quarterback instead of Caleb Williams?
Yeah, he's very, if you talk to trainers and coaches, who've worked with him in the past, the emphasis is timing and is playing on schedule. And as we all saw last year, Caleb Williams is, and of course, when he won the Heisman Trophy, Caleb Williams is brilliant at playing off schedule and making magic from nothing and extending plays. But, at times, if you look at kind of the advanced stats, he held onto the ball for a long time. He took a lot of sacks. He gave up a lot of fumbles. And for all the goodness in Lincoln Riley's offense, that didn't quite mesh as well at times last year. Part of that was a shaky offensive line, which Miller Moss may have to deal with. We'll see. But Moss, his strengths, he's not going to, extend plays like Caleb Williams did. He's not going to make that same kind of magic. He doesn't have quite the physical attributes. but he can execute Lincoln Riley's offense at a really high level. He knows how to get the ball out. He knows how to get the ball out quick. He'll thrive in kind of that spread style offense. And it's a matter of, does he have, there's a wide range of receivers at his disposal. Do all those kind of sophomores coming up step up? Can they, develop from a leadership standpoint? Can the offensive line give him, the time to kind of go through his progressions and make the right reads? And, it's impossible to replace a Caleb Williams, but I think they have a chance of just looking like a different offense entirely. And I don't think that is one that will be necessarily worse. I think they have a chance to be maybe not quite as good, but in that same area as they were last year. And we've never really seen a Lincoln Riley offense take a massive dip. So that's going to be something. And they still have the talent to be great on that end.
What you were talking about with the defense is so similar to how we're talking about LSU's defense in terms of, well, they should be better. It looks like they're better. But when you look at that group and what you've learned about it throughout the preseason, what are the areas that could be strengths and what are the areas that there are still concerns that could end up making a difference here in this game against LSU?
I think the secondary, my impression is, frankly, the secondary could be maybe the deepest position on the roster, which is, a pretty crazy statement considering what we saw at times last year. They brought in, a few transfers with some really solid experience. DeCarlos Nicholson from Mississippi State, Reedy Vance Jr. from Florida State, John Humphrey from UCLA, and then safeties, Kamari Ramsey from UCLA, Akili Arnold from Oregon State. A lot of Pac-12 guys, a lot of guys, just veterans with good experience, a lot of new length in the secondary. And his coaching staff, Danton Lynn is a secondary guy through and through. Doug Bell comes from Houston, where he was the defensive coordinator, had some success at times there. I think the secondary is going to be a stronger point, certainly. It even gave USC's offense a little bit of trouble in the spring game, and we can only take spring games with a grain of salt, but I think that's going to be a strength of the defense. The biggest weakness that we're going to have to see is whether the defensive line, there's been a lot of talk this offseason about how much weight that, the guys have put on at the line of scrimmage, how much more physical they're playing. Question is whether USC has the talent to get there. Bear Alexander is the biggest name on the defensive line, but he needs to kind of make a big, consistent jump for them to be a legitimately strong unit. A lot of guys who need to kind of have prove it years. Anthony Lucas is one of them there. So that's kind of the weakness. I think the linebacker group also has a long way to go, but there is talent there. So I'd say overall takeaways is the secondary is going to be strong. Defensive line certainly has something to prove.
Who were, if you had to pick three players that, the LSU fan who doesn't know anything about this roster, who do they need to know about? Who should they maybe be fearful of in this game?
I think the number one, they may have heard him, but Zachariah Branch, returner extraordinaire, kind of instantly lit up college football in week 1 last year. But, the hype gradually slowed down a little bit, and that's purely because of a facet of how loaded the receiver room was. But been a lot of talk of how much he's improved kind of this offseason as a receiver, learning the position and learning kind of the ins and outs of route running and even improving his speed. But he's an electrifying player just in the return game, and it'll be interesting to see how USC uses him more prevalent as a receiver this year. I'd say another two, I think Easton Mascarenas Arnold is going to have a big role as a linebacker. Oregon State transfer, he's immediately kind of taken a leadership role and helped relieve a lot of the duties that the linebackers struggled with last year. So he's going to be a huge tackle guy, kind of that captain in the middle of USC's defense. And then I point back to either Bear Alexander. I think he's a name that, when it's going well, it's scary for opposing teams, and when it's not going well, it's scary for USC. So he needs to have a really big year from for in the middle for USC's defensive line to make an impact.
Well, Luca, thank you so much for your insight. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great to talk.
All right, thank you, Wilson, and our thanks to Luca Evans of the Orange County Register for our opposing beat writer scouting report. Today's episode of LSU Insider is brought to you by Classic Industrial Services, proudly serving Louisiana and the entire United States with high-quality scaffolding, rental services, metal siding and roofing, steam and electric tracing systems. You want pretty much anything, commercial coatings, general maintenance services, they got it all. From large capital projects to commercial projects or small quick response needs, Classic Industrial is your go-to for quality and safety. They're not just about business. They're a proud community partner supporting local initiatives and helping build a stronger Baton Rouge. Because at Classic Industrial Services, every minute matters. All right, guys. So we heard from Luca. Obviously, USC, this, Rab wrote about it in this morning's paper. This is a big game for them, too. They also have a quarterback in Miller Moss who played in their bowl game last year and played really well. Had 6 touchdown passes against Louisville in the Holiday Bowl. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, had 3 in LSU's victory over Wisconsin in the ReliaQuest, whatever one is in Tampa, whatever they call that one. And then you also have some star players. You have coaches who have won, but maybe not as high of a level as people want. Like USC's got some players, though. We heard it from Luca. We're going to do our today's star player segment. It's proudly sponsored by Waste Pro. Ensure your tailgate or event is a hit with clean and convenient portable toilets from Waste Pro. Rent yours today. And we thought we'd do this a little bit different today. USC star players. Luca mentioned some of them. Zachariah Branch is a guy we're going to talk about later. Koki, I know you said you wanted to talk about their big defensive tackle, Bear Alexander.
Yeah, Bear Alexander is probably, among all their guys in the defensive line, he has the most pop. And when I say pop in turn, just talking about like ceiling and potential impact. Apparently, USC's coaching staff has really been pushing him hard this fall to really reach his potential. This is a guy who was originally committed to Georgia at one point. He's a guy that every team in the country wanted. And now he's at USC. I believe this is year 2 at USC for him. And this is just a very talented guy in the middle of that defensive line. And if he's matched up in front of DJ Chester a lot, which is what I imagine what could happen in this game, then that could be a problem for LSU because of just how, especially if this guy lives up to his potential, just how dangerous he can be it just sort of disrupting things for LSU's offense.
USC's run defense last year, Zach, keep in mind, it was worse than LSU's. One of the worst. One of the worst 15, I think, in terms of yards per game, one of the 15 worst in the country. And obviously the defense is totally different now. New coordinator, some new personnel. They made a lot of changes to try to fix that unit, just like LSU did. Talk about the parallels between the two teams. So it's going to be a different defense. It's not going to be the same unit that gave up so many rushing yards last year. But did they do enough to solve the defense? Did they bring in enough from the transfer portal to solve that problem? We don't know. And I think given LSU's offensive line overall, it should be interesting to see how well LSU can run the ball against that front seven.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at Luca Evans' Twitter feed, and he has a bunch of videos of interviews that he's done with USC players and press conferences this week. And one of the common themes that you hear from USC is, we know we have to stop the run. We know they're going to want to run the ball. We've heard that from LSU that, it's not going to be the unscripted Jaden Daniels running all over the place. We've talked about it all month. They're going to rely on the running game from the running backs a little bit more. Caleb Jackson, heavily featured. So this is a key matchup for me. It's a good time for us to kind of segue into our breakdown here, and we're gonna do this. We'll start with LSU has the ball. We'll flip to when USC has the ball. We'll do a short special team segment, and then we're gonna get into some picks. So when LSU has the ball, my question is: we talked about Garrett Nussmeier, 395 yards, 3 touchdowns against Wisconsin in that game. He threw for over 300 yards against Georgia in one half in the SEC championship game in 2022. But there's also this feeling that LSU wants to, as you're saying, Reed, establish that run, pick on the weak part of USC's defense. So what do you expect the run-pass split to be, guys?
I think y'all might disagree with me on this, but I think LSU is going to have more rushing attempts than passing attempts.
Wow,
that's my take. That's my kind of going out
bold prediction.
Yeah, going out on a limb kind of take there. I think Will Campbell, when we talked to him on Tuesday, he sort of telegraphed what LSU wants to do. He said, we're going to run the ball. We're not trying to hide it. It's not a secret. That's what we want to do as an offense. And because he's going into year 3 now, he's the leader of the team. He's the leader of the offense. It's sort of LSU goes as he goes, right? And so he is going to have a lot of say in terms of how LSU sets the tone offensively. I know this sounds, cliche, but it wants to establish the run, and it has the personnel to do so between the offensive line and the running game with Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams. And if you look at a team like USC, they still have to prove that they can stop the run. So I think when you look at LSU's offense, you see the potential for what this run game can become, and then you look at what USC was defensively last year. I think they can succeed running the ball, and I think they want to run the ball. So that's the path that I see toward them getting up there in rushing attempts.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is very interesting, and there's nothing that you actually said that I disagree with, but at the same time, these aren't technically runs, but I think they're going to put the ball in space a lot. What I mean by that is I think they're going to run a lot of screens in this game. I think what LSU should probably do in this game is try to get USC to tackle in space as much as possible. This was a horrible tackling team last season. So you want to prove you want to see if they've actually, made those adjustments. And B, we're early in the season, right? Most teams aren't good at tackling in week 1. So if you want to put your great playmakers in space, because if you're running the ball a lot, that means that's less touches for guys like Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton, then even a guy like Aaron Anderson could be pretty big in this game, right? Because of his quickness and of shiftiness in space. So getting the ball in your playmakers' hands, whether that's just short passes or whether that's screens, I can see a lot of that happening in this game, especially if USC dials up the pressure from just a blitzing standpoint, which I could see them doing because of how good LSU's offensive line is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think to get to a positive run in modern football, like to actually run the ball more times than you pass it, you almost have to have a lead, right? You got to get to a lead, and you're going to be running the ball, and that fourth quarter is going to be a 75-25 run split to get over 50-50 for the game. So that could happen. Let me ask you this, because last year I think LSU's offense felt under pressure to go out and get 40 every game for obvious reasons. Is that changing this year? I mean, are they obviously USC's got a good offense too, which we'll talk about in a minute, but do you think they need like 30 plus points to win this thing?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, we know LSU's defense is probably going to be better because there's only one way to go, and that's up, right? But how much better will it be? I think there's only one way to find out, and that's to see it line up and actually play a real game. We've seen it in preseason camp be more disruptive. We've seen them try different things that they didn't use last year. Wilson Alexander has a good story up this morning on theadvocate.com about how Blake Baker, the new defensive coordinator, wants to create havoc, and that's his philosophy on the defensive side of the ball. He wants a 25% havoc rate, which, Koki, you can explain this if I do a poor job of it, is basically sacks, tackles for loss, disruptive kind of plays that get stopped behind the line of scrimmage. Out of all the plays that an offense runs, if a fourth of them get stopped behind the line of scrimmage, then that's a 25% havoc rate, so-called. So that's what Blake Baker wants to do. It seems like he has the personnel to do it, but does LSU have the personnel to play man coverage like he wants to do? Could it be a sort of difficult situation in the first few weeks of the season where they're trying to figure out exactly what they are, what their identity wants to be? I could see that as well, but that's the question. Can LSU play enough defense to take some of the pressure off the offense? I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is, when you're trying to create havoc and you want a 25% havoc rate, you're also going to have the potential of your rate of giving up big plays goes up as well, right? So, and that's especially true against a team like USC that has so many talented playmakers. I mean, this team has a kind of a quartet of sophomore receivers who are all, extremely talented, extremely dangerous players when they have the ball in their hands, and combine that with a potentially strong running game because of Woody Marks and his ability to catch passes out of the backfield. I mean, Woody Marks, he's a Mississippi State transfer. He's the all-time reception leader in Mississippi State history. And
is that right?
Yes,
really?
that is right. No one has had more receptions in the history of Mississippi State football than Woody Marks. So he's now going to be on this USC team. to combine with all these talented receivers they have one of the deepest receiving rooms in the country. So when there's that many weapons available on the field for Miller Moss to have, even though Miller Moss isn't very experienced, it still kind of opens you up to giving up big plays if you're going to be that aggressive. So I still think it's important for LSU to be aggressive in this game, especially for that front four to win their battles. But I think all that's just to say that that side of the field seems pretty volatile to me. While offensively, I think LSU has a lot of advantages against this USC defense, and we can get into that a little bit more here. But for this matchup in particular, when we're just talking about how much the defense has to help out the offense, they obviously have to help them out. But of all, I guess, the quote unquote bigger matchups they have against the better teams they faced in the country this season, this one in particular, I feel like they may not need quite as much help as they would in, say, an Ole Miss game or even a Texas A&M game, in my opinion.
So we skip forward a little bit there to kind of when USC has the ball, which is fine. I did want to hit on Miller Moss. I went back and looked. And, LSU fans obviously very familiar with what happened in Tampa last year where Jaden Daniels didn't play. Garrett Nussmeier stepped in, did a great job, kind of a back-and-forth game, leads the drive late to let LSU win that game. It's so eerily similar. USC had Caleb Williams, also a Heisman Trophy winner, also opted out of their bowl game. They thumped Louisville. There was no back and forth. I think it finished 42-28. It was not that close. It's 42-14, I think, at one point. He threw for 6 touchdown passes, super impressive throws. And as we look at Blake Baker's new scheme and this new look secondary and all these things, they're going to be tested. You talked about their running backs, Koki, but I do think USC's going to try to air the ball out some here.
Yeah, I think they will. They have to be a little bit careful of it, and they have to be very successful on first and second down. And I say that because if you get to third and long, then you get to the prowler front, then you get to those question marks they have on their own offensive line kind of get exposed. USC, we still don't really know who their starting right guard's going to be. Their left tackle from last season's moving to center. They got a lot of moving pieces on that offensive line. It's probably the weakness of that offense. So getting pressure on Miller Moss is going to be really key in this game in terms of slowing down this attack, because I think USC has the advantage on the perimeter, just in terms of their receivers against LSU secondary. So if LSU wants to win this game, it's creating consistent pressure on Moss, whether that's stopping the running game on early downs to force third and longs, or that's just putting in intermittent blitzes even outside of third and long scenarios. So or just Savion Jones and Paris Shan and Braden Swinson winning on the edges, which could very well be the case in a game like this.
That's a great point. It's where I was going next is if LSU wants to stop that and they don't want to put those corners on an island, man, that front seven, particularly that D-line and Harold Perkins, they have to do their job.
And that's an opportunity for LSU, right, to sort of test out its new blitz packages, right? Because how many offensive lines are they going to face that have as many question marks as this one this season? USC, like you mentioned, they don't really have a firm answer at right guard. Their right tackle as well, I believe, is a converted guard who they're moving over to that.
It's just a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces. So if LSU is going to create more pressure this season, then now is the time to show that, because you're not going to have many opportunities like this one against an offensive line that's probably one of the weaker points of this USC team. So we talked to Craig Penn, Harold Perkins on Tuesday, and they walked us through a little bit about the Prowler front, which is their specialty pass rush package, and they really emphasized the importance of stopping USC on first and second downs so that they can get to that Prowler front, which is what which is what Greg Penn said Blake Baker calls his baby, because that's what he wants to be as a defense, that attacking, blitzing, specialty, aggressive package. And in order to put that on the field, you have to stop them on first and second downs, getting third and longs, passing situations. You have to be in the red zone or 2-minute drills. So LSU has an opportunity to create pressure, and whether they do or not is going to tell us, I think, a lot about where the season might be headed.
And that's why I think there's maybe a slightly greater chance that USC runs the ball more than we think, because they're going to want to avoid those third and long scenarios, because they know all of this is potentially coming. They know about we've talked about in the media about their prowler fronts. They must know about these prowler fronts as well, right? So they don't want to be in these third and long scenarios. They don't want to be in these scenarios where they're potentially exposing their offensive line. So if they can somehow run the ball on first and second down and get into these third and short scenarios, and that really sort of neutralizes the pass rush and opens up more opportunities to get the ball to playmakers on the outside. So especially when you have a running back like Woody Marks, who's very good. So like I think like that's why I think like Jacoby and Guillory and Gio Paez and even Jalen Lee, if he rotates in there, or JVR Suggs, like those guys are going to be big in this game in terms of eating up blockers and opening up space for Harold Perkins. And plus, like I think USC is going to want to test Harold Perkins as a run defender, right? Like that was his major weakness last season in the opener against Florida State. It's why he ended up having to move positions eventually. I think they're going to want to put hat on top of a hat in terms of the running game, and really testing Perkins as just filling up holes in the run game.
Yep. Because to your point, you're not going to run the prowler on 3rd and 3. You're going to get hit with a slant to Zachariah Branch, and that's bad news. You don't want like if it's 3rd and 9, now we're talking, because USC needs to let those plays develop. So that's that's kind of going to be the chess match when USC has the ball. Quick word about special teams. And I mentioned Zachariah Branch a minute ago because I wanted to talk about him. He's a guy who could change this game in one play. I mean, he had a kick return for a touchdown last year. He had a punt return for a touchdown last year. It was just one score of each, kickoff and punt. I think teams started to try to kick away from him. I particularly wanted to talk about the punting portion of this because LSU's trying out new punters. You make a mistake in this. The guy averaged more than 20 yards a punt return last year. Just an insane number.
It's tough to wrap your head around.
Yeah, like you get that on a kickoff return because you're getting the ball back at the 2 and you got some space to run. More than 20 yards per punt return. You got to be careful.
Yeah, and LSU has a question mark at punter. Brian Kelly said a couple weeks ago that he's still really isn't sure who's going to be the top guy. He said he floated the possibility, which I've never really seen this before, of LSU using 2 punters in the same game. That sort of says, like the old adage goes, if you have 2 punters, you have no punters. I think that's
quite how it goes.
Yeah, but so it's a question mark. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I could see a scenario where whoever starts at punter, kicks a line drive punt, and then Branch gets in space and takes it up against the LSU tacklers, and that can be big. He has enough speed, enough athleticism to really flip a game with one of those returns. And if you're LSU, that's the last thing you want to do, because in a game like this, the margins are already thin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Under Brian Kelly, LSU special teams have been pretty solid, and they need to keep that going.
Well, 2 years ago that was not the case.
That's
last
true.
year,
You're right. You're right. 2 years ago was a big problem.
Last year that was the case. Like they really sort of figured things out, despite the fact that there was a lot of skepticism heading into the year about their special teams because they didn't have a special teams coordinator. If you remember right. This year they do again, but it sounds like it's going to be once again sort of that that committee approach to coaching special teams, and it worked for them last year, so they've kind of earned the benefit of the doubt in terms of that. The one thing I will note about USC, they're breaking in a new kicker, Michael Lance. He's a transfer from Georgia Southern. He was battling the job throughout fall, so we'll see if he actually becomes the guy. So, that's the only other special teams note that I had.
All right, so we've broken this game down from each offense and defense and special teams. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back with our overall keys to the game and our predictions right after this on the LSU Sports Insider.
Since 1988, Classic Industrial Services, Inc. has led the industry in specialty contracting. From thermal insulation to scaffolding, coatings, and beyond, we cover it all. Every minute matters in our commitment to quality and safety. We're here to serve with roofing, siding, heat trace, and refractory services. Visit ClassicIndustrial.com for more information.
All right, so back on the LSU Sports Insider, breaking down LSU USC. And now we're going to get to our keys to the game. We've already kind of probably mentioned it, but I'm going to ask you guys to kind of boil it down to one matchup, one factor you think will decide this thing. Our keys to the game bread and butter segment is proudly sponsored by Associated Grocers. Join our team and support the success of local independent retail grocers. Apply today for available positions at Associated Grocers. Koki, let's have you go first. What is your key to USC versus LSU on Sunday night?
LSU's defensive line versus USC's offensive line. These are two units that are kind of coming into the year as question marks for both teams. For LSU, it's more the interior than the edges. For USC, it's the whole darn line, except for maybe left tackle. If LSU can win that matchup, I think I would be surprised if they don't win this game. I'd be very surprised because I think they're going to have a clear advantage on the other side of the ball with the lines there. So if LSU, can plug up holes in the running game, create constant pressure on Miller Moss, that's going to make life just more difficult for USC. It's going to be harder for them to push the ball down the field with their very talented receivers, and you're kind of forced into dink and dunk on the perimeter. And I mean, unless LSU is just a horrid day tackling on the perimeter, which is possible. Right? We've seen them have very poor tackling days before. It's still hard to win that way. So I really do think that if guys like Jacoby and Guillory and Gio Paez can play well in this game and sort of assert their I guess quote unquote dominance in the interior, that would be actually absolutely huge for this team.
Okay, so LSU's D-line dominance. How about you, Reed?
I'm going to go with two things real quick. Establishing the run, running the ball, using the offensive line to create space and to win the line of scrimmage. I just think running the ball is going to be super key. Here for LSU, they have a chance to control the pace and tempo of the game. And that's going to be especially important because USC likes to air it out. We know they can score. We know the offense is going to be really good. So if LSU can control the pace and tempo of the game, then that could help a lot. And the other thing is tackling space. Like Koki mentioned, they struggled with that last year. Have they fixed it? Have they improved? We'll find out because USC has a lot of playmakers who thrive in space.
It's a big question mark for both teams.
Yeah. So, we talk about Associated Grocers. This is really bread and butter stuff. Offensive line play, defensive line play, and tackling is football, boys. You got to go out there and execute. I'll add one more, and that's I'd like to see LSU get off to a fast start. After what's happened the last couple of years in these season opening games against Florida State, go out there and set the tone on both sides of the ball. Get you a 7-0 lead after the first quarter. Show that you're there, that you're there to play, that you've got a lot of intensity. They've talked a big game. Now let's go see it.
And I think the reason why we keep on going back to the lines is because we know both these teams have the playmakers, and we just kind of figure that, once these guys get the ball in space, especially with the reputations that both these teams have in terms of just pure tackling and even coverage, even though USC's secondary is pretty good. I think those guys are gonna make plays when they have the ball, so that's kind of like
it's an advantage to those teams to win that.
We just know we just know that's an advantage already. So I think the lines are going to kind of determine which side gets the ball to playmakers more often.
Yeah, the key is, can you put your team in that situation more than USC does. So, Tiger Fans Associated Grocers is hiring. Join a team committed to the success of independent retail grocers. Apply today at Associated Grocers and be part of something great. So that brings us to the prediction portion of this program. We had Wilson and Rab give their predictions, both fairly tight LSU victories. I think actually Rab was a little bit 35-24, might have been a little bit more spread out. But the betting line in this one is LSU by 4. And we're going to bring on our sports betting segment with Thomas Casale. And he's going to explain kind of some of that line movement. It started at LSU minus 6.5. So some money coming in on USC. The over-under is 64.5. Actually, I think it's down to 64 now. And LSU, as you can see on the money line, a slight minus 180 favorite. The Queen of Baton Rouge proudly sponsors the LSU Sports Insider's sports betting segment with Thomas Casale. Experience the thrill of game day at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails, your premier destination for elevated sports entertainment. Let's hear what Thomas has to say.
Thanks, guys. Well, the start of the LSU season is finally here. They play USC on Sunday night. Now, the line for this game has been crazy. It was at LSU minus 6.5. The last time we spoke about this game, it was starting to drop a little bit. I said it could go down to 5.5, 5. Now it's LSU minus 4 at DraftKings. I didn't think it would go that low, but after USC named Miller Moss the starting quarterback, you really started to see a lot of money come on the underdog Trojans. That made sense to me at 6.5. I thought the line was a little bit too high for two teams who are basically replicas of each other, replacing Heisman Trophy quarterbacks, new defensive coordinators for bad units last year. So I expect this to be a close game. But I got to tell you, if you can get minus 4 at DraftKings, I think the value is now gone to LSU. And I do believe you'll see some late money come in on the Tigers. So that's where I'm going this week, LSU minus 4 over USC.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Tiger fans, you can catch all the sports action at the Queen Casino's DraftKings Sportsbook Bar and 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails with top-notch screens and live betting. It's the ultimate spot to watch your favorite teams and enjoy a cold brew or signature cocktail. The Queen Casino, it's the only land-based casino in Baton Rouge and your go-to for game day or any day. Visit today and elevate your sports watching and betting experience. Okay, prediction time, guys. I'm going to go first. You guys are the beat writers. You're the experts. I'll get my prediction out of the way. I actually disagree with Thomas. I think USC covers this spread. I think it's a close game. I think it comes down to it. But ultimately, how many times have we seen these early season non-conference matchups and the SEC team just kind of finds a way to win? And for LSU, that has not been the case the past couple of years. But I think, USC's in the Big Ten this year. They still got a little bit of that Pac-12 stench on them. Maybe their new kicker misses a field goal late. I got LSU hanging on 30-28.
First of all, respect to the Pac-12. All right, as a former Pac-12 reporter, RIP to the great Conference of Champions. And second of all, I have LSU beating USC anyway, 35-24. So I
think we actually went reverse order. The way we have this set up, Reed was supposed to go next.
Oh, sorry.
So, but that's okay.
I had to defend the Pac-12 though. I just jumped out and defended the Pac-12.
Okay.
He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
He had to defend the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 isn't here to defend itself.
Wow.
So I said, so you said over under 64.
It is 64.
And the LSU, the spread is 4. Is that right? 4.5.
You should be an odds maker based on your.
I mean, I'm just saying, so I think the over hits, and I think LSU covers. So I went 35-30 LSU. I just think that LSU has an offense that can control the pace of the game, and they have a front seven that can pressure LSU. So I envision a scenario late in the game where LSU's offensive line controls the tempo and its defense comes up with a couple big stops, and that's really all LSU needs to come out with 5-point win or so.
Which, by the way, 35-30. Not that it's an uncommon score, but it's not like the most traditional football score of all time.
That's my signal. That's my signal based on the spread and the line.
We asked these guys independently to come up with their predictions. So if you watch Tuesday's show, Wilson Alexander also picked 35-30 LSU on the dot. So if that's the score, we got some Nostradamus in here, and you better be listening in every week. So Koki,
and didn't Rab pick 35-24?
I don't. You know what? I may have been mixing that up with your score. Now I can't remember exactly, but Rab did have an easier victory. So you think LSU's defense steps up a little bit, though?
Yeah, I just think LSU has the clear advantage on both lines, and I just feel like they're just going to control the game through the lines, and I think it's still a major question mark as to whether USC can hang with these more physical teams. I mean, last year that's been a huge problem for them under Lincoln Riley, and now they're heading to the Big Ten, which is an issue of its own. But they have such a skill position advantage in the Big Ten against most of the teams that they're going to face against that it's not going to be as big of a problem, I think. But with LSU, that's not the case. So yes, both these teams are in a very similar spot, but I just feel like LSU's the better team on lines. I also feel like LSU's the deeper team on almost every level of the field. Like USC doesn't have a lot of depth at some of these positions, and I look at LSU's depth chart. I just feel like there's a lot more quality there, and I think that probably matters more at the end of the season. But for a game like this, it matters in terms of versatility, in terms of adjustments as the game goes on, and I just feel like LSU has more bodies they can throw out there to to adjust to whatever USC's doing throughout the game. And I don't think USC quite has that same level of versatility except for at wide receiver and corner. And not just corner, just the secondary in general. They have a pretty good secondary. But other than that, I don't know. I just feel like LSU, both these teams are in similar spots. LSU, to me, is just like a step or two ahead in terms of it, despite being on a similar path.
All right, so I actually went back and looked. Scott Rabelais picked 31-24, so you guys weren't exactly the same. You have the easiest LSU win, Koki, but we're 5 for 5 picking LSU. Hopefully that's not the kiss of death for the Tigers, but look, I mean, I think bottom line is we think they get it done. It's a huge game, guys, and it's finally here.
Yeah, and I promise I didn't copy Wilson's homework. Wilson, if you're listening, I didn't copy your homework. I like to look at the odds and the spread and try to, you know.
Thank goodness this is the last game. This is the last podcast, I should say. These are the games for us, folks. This is the last podcast that we're gonna do where we're just not just theorizing the whole time.
We got games to break down. We finally have games
to break down after this podcast, which is just fantastic news.
And we will be back on Tuesday to break this one down. We're going to be Monday, Thursday most weeks, but because of the Sunday game, I think we're going Tuesday, Thursday again next week. And then we'll turn our attention to the rest of LSU season. It starts with Nicholls State in their home opener on September 7th. But as of right now, all eyes on LSU, USC. Follow our coverage at theadvocate.com/LSU. Check it out in The Advocate. You can go subscribe to our website. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, and get all of this great content for free. Our thanks to Waste Pro and the rest of our sponsors. Amelia Cotton was our producer today. And for our beat writers, Koki Riley and Reed Darcey, I'm Zach Ewing, and this has been the LSU Sports Insider.